Okay, in this next truth table, this is the first time that you are going to see three separate variables representing three simple statements. Okay, so it does make our truth table a little bit bigger. I just want to comment on how it is that I come up with this truth table, because there's a method to the madness that makes it pretty easy not to miss something. Notice in my P column, I've done 4 truths followed by 4 falses. Okay, that's the pattern I always use. 4 truths followed by 4 falses. Then I cut that in half for the next column. In other words, I cut the 4 in half to 2, and I do 2 true, 2 false, 2 true, 2 false. And then in the third column, I cut that 2 in half again to 1. And so I alternate every other one. True, false, true, false, true, false. That will always work, and it will help you ensure that you don't forget any of the possible combinations, or you don't end up duplicating one of your rows again and not realize it. Okay. And again, you are always welcome to kind of refer back. And lots of times those first few columns will be provided for you. But just again, a little note on how it is that I do that so I don't miss anything. Okay, so moving on to the evaluation of whether or not this statement is true or false and under what conditions. So the first thing here that you'll notice, and there's not a right or wrong in terms of these next 2 columns we're filling out. You could have done either one first, okay? But in this case, I started with the parentheses, P and Q. So remember, all we need to do in this case is look at the P and Q columns. Nothing else, okay? If you're looking at anything else, your eyes are wandering to places they don't need to be wandering to. Now, if this is an and, remember, again, you can look on the previous page. The only time an and statement is true is when both simple statements are true. In other words, you need a true and a true to get a true. Okay, so looking at the columns that are highlighted, I have a true and a true. That gives me a true. I have a true and a true, which gives me a true. And then as I look down the rest of the way, I see that there is not a single place where I have the combination true, true again. So that means that all of these remaining values are false. Okay. All right, now I'm going to erase my highlighting here in blue, get rid of that. And we're going to move on to the next column. Okay, in this case, that happens to be our column for not R. Okay, and again, it wouldn't have mattered whether we did the not R first before the P and Q. Really, it makes no difference. Okay, now we're talking about not R. So the only column I need to be considering right now is the R column. Okay, and remember what a not does. It reverses the truth value. Okay, it switches it to the opposite. So instead of true, false down the way, this is going to be false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true. Okay, now that part's done. So I don't need to look at column R any longer. Okay, now the last part, I've got this P and Q and I've got the not R. So the last part that I need to take into consideration is this or here in the middle. I need to join up what I've already done. So that's this last column, okay? And in order to do that, the 2 pieces I'm looking at are my P and Q, this column right here, and my not R, this column right there. I don't need to look at anything else, okay? And this is an or. So again, if you want to look back at the previous page, the only time an or statement is not true is when both of the simple statements are false. Okay, so if there's a true anywhere, your or statement will be true. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glance through here real quick and I'm going to look for anywhere where I see everything that's false. Because if I see 2 falses together in my highlighted zones there, I know my result is false. And I do. I see some falses here in row 3. Okay. I see down in row 5, I see a false. And in row 7, I see a false, which all lead me to false. Okay. From there, anything that has 1 true is true. And so I've already kind of done the ones that are the exceptions. And so I'm going to go through and fill in trues the rest of the way. And at this point now, your table has been completely filled out. There's your truth table. Okay. As you work, one of the things that will be helpful to you is there is an order of operations, okay, just like there is for algebra. And so this is the way it works. So grouping symbols, okay, and then within those grouping symbols, just like with anything, you follow the rules from there. So if there's negation, that would come next within the grouping symbol. If there's no negation within the grouping symbol, then a grouping symbol outside. Conjunction and disjunction get equal priority, and then conditionals, and then biconditionals. So there are times that that will help you. Most of the time what you're going to be dealing with is the grouping symbols. So work on your grouping symbols and your negations and then put the rest together. Okay.